Well, Happy New Year, everybody. This is show 238, Addicted to Gear, and we're revving to go. I got to get used to saying 2025. It seems odd to say that, but that's where we ended up, guys. So thank you for joining me today. I hope today is going to be a fantastic show. I'm looking forward to it because it's the first show of 2025. For those of you that have been here before, you know the drill. We're here to, it's basically a support group for addiction, but in this case, it's gear addiction. And I'm your host here every Sunday for about an hour or so. So I'm here for moral support, any kind of advice. You know, if you need help with the 12-step program, I'm here to assist with that. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. But either way, we try and get through it together because we're all in this together, guys, whether we like it or not. So I hope you guys had a fantastic new year. I hope you celebrated in style and there was no casualties. Hopefully nobody's missing from the roster here today. Everybody's over the hangover. And survived. I survived a little bit of wear and tear, but nonetheless, I'm here. And I'm here to talk gear. So I hope you guys are also here to jump right into the conversation. We have a few topics lined up for you guys today that we're going to jump into as well and get the year off on the right foot. There is a new poll question that's been out a couple of days. So if you haven't seen that, I'll jump onto the poll question a little bit later on during the show. And hopefully we won't be interrupted by any type of ads and we can jump right into it. So good morning to everybody. Thank you for waking up so early on a Sunday. I know it's not always easy to do. But I look forward to it and I hope you guys do too. Dan Gordon is here. He says a good happy new year, Tony. Same to you, Dan. Lots of wealth, prosperity, and guitars, hopefully this year. Jack is here as well. Good morning, Jack. Ken, Shane, Gushman, Mark is here. John had a little comment. He says, I was going to stay up for this, but if I stop commenting, you know I'll have fallen asleep. So hopefully we haven't lost John already. Mark is gearing up for a show. He's going to be hitting Maryland. So Mark, you're still full swing into the shows. It seems like you're quite busy with that, and it's great to see you taking advantage, and you haven't lost momentum, which is always a good thing. And if you have any new gear you want to talk to us about, bring it up, because he says, speaking of gear, I'm sure Mark probably bought something over the holidays. Shane is here. Good evening. He says, good evening, Davis. I don't know who's Davis. What acts are you playing tonight? He says. I don't know if he's... Davis says, I'm going with Les Paul Standard. Good evening to you in Japan. So there you go. You got your answer. Profile says, good, happy new year. And Vinny's World says, happy new year all. Tony, are you going to change the title of the show? I'm all for possibly considering a title for the show. Any suggestions, Vinny? Let me know. I'm all ears. And let me jump down to the bottom of the comments so I don't lose track, guys. Let's see. Presley's here. Vox, it's me, Don P. Paul's here as well. Paul says, just made it. First 8 hours sleep in literally years. Best for all of 2024 was 7 hours and only once. Mark said he's gearing up for the show. No new gear, apparently. And Cool Tune says, after borrowing a 12-string, I'm on the hunt for a 12-string. Cool Tunes, those 12-string guitars are quite enticing. I had to get one too. I don't play it very often, to be honest, but every once in a while when you want to play that song where you need that sound, there's nothing that's gonna give you that sound better than a 12-string guitar. So it's really nice to have one if you're into that kind of thing. Let's see here. Casey Lee says, "What's up, guitar gang? Sitting here in central Kentucky watching the snow pile up. We had a little bit of snow, a little sprinkling of snow yesterday, but we haven't gotten hit hard yet. I know it's on its way. It's coming. Just don't know when. They like to keep us on our toes here, but it's gonna come for sure." All right, so let's jump into the chit chat, shall we? And if there's any questions that you guys have that maybe didn't ask last time, let's do it. Let's talk about it. Shane says, "Let's take a collection and send Tony to 2025 NAMM." I'd love to go. Anywhere warmer than here, I'm all for it. Why not? That's a good idea. I'm all for that idea. Thank you for suggesting that, Shane. And Eddie Jr. says, "I gave my daughter $5,000 to put on a new car. I was, oh my God, that would have bought a nice guitar or two." Yeah, man. You can't look at it that way, though. I tend to look at it that way, too. Whenever I have to spend money, I'm always like, man, that would have been a nice pedal, or that would have been a nice amplifier. But you can't do that. Family comes first. And I'm sure if you gave her that cash, she appreciated it, and it's all going to come back to you. Maybe twice as much. Good karma. You know how it goes. Rico says, "Got an email from Guitar Center yesterday. My MXR Randy Rhoads pedal that I ordered in August was out for delivery. Forgot I ordered it." Wow. Excuse me. Let me just take a sip here. I love when that happens, Rico. You know, sometimes you order something exactly like that and you're on a waiting list. And then when you finally get it, it's like, oh yeah, I ordered that. I forgot. That's kind of how I felt when I ordered my Fractal, my FM9. I was on a waiting list, I think, for over a year at that time, during the whole shutdown period. And they were back ordered for I don't know how long. And I had placed the order. And it was waiting, no news, and I finally got it, and it was like, oh man, it's like Christmas all over again. So that's going to be sweet when you finally get the Randy Rhoads pedal. Let's see, August, September, October, November, December, January, 5 months. Yeah, that's a long time to wait for anything. I don't like to wait. Instant gratification is my middle name, unfortunately. D-Max says, "Hi, Tony. Was looking at trying out a Bugera Power Soak. You've had one before, right? I'm thinking of using it with a Marshall Origin 20 to get more crank sounds at lower volume." Yes, I did have one. Actually, I still do. I don't use it as much now that I have my aux box. This guy right here. So I don't really need it anymore, but I still have it. Honestly, for the money that it costs, it's very good. If you have the Marshall Origin and you want to get it into the sweet spot, then that would get you there, definitely. And it's like you can get them for probably under $100 used, probably these days, I think, unless prices have gone up with those as well. So it's a great tool to have. I'd go for it, man. I think you're going to like it. John says, "I managed to sneak in a 5th guitar for the new year on the 30th of December. So right under the cutoff line. Harley Benton, DC Junior Fat, secondhand on Facebook Marketplace." Very cool. The DC Juniors. I have one of those. It's not the fat version, though, I think. But yeah, those are cool guitars. It's nice to have. So right under, just before the deadline. That's the way to do it, John. Just sneak them in, man. Shane wants to know who has a travel guitar and what do you recommend? It all depends, Shane. Obviously, you're probably looking for an electric guitar, not an acoustic. Is that right? For travel guitars. the thing with travel guitars, in my opinion, is that they all come with compromises. You're not going to get one that's going to work and sound exactly like a full-blown electric or acoustic guitar. There's always going to be compromises. So it depends what you're looking for. First of all, let us know if it's acoustic or electric. My guess it's electric. And then I can give you a couple of suggestions, or at least some some first-hand experience that I have with those type of things. Boomerang wants to know if I still have my FM9. Yeah, it's right here. You can't see it's off camera. But today I'm playing through my Trident. Which I think sounds pretty good as well. Playing through this, guys. This is it's not a Les Paul. This is a Bacchus. They call this the Live Road model, Universe Series. This is a guitar that is made in China. They also have Japanese versions of these guitars, but this one's made in China. Very fun guitar to play. It's got a very thin neck. It reminds me a lot of the neck on my SG. And I bought this one for that reason, because the neck was a lot slimmer than any of my other guitars that are Les Paul style guitars. And the body was kind of sweet too. It's got some nice flame happening there. I did change the pickups on this guitar, but it basically came mint. And it's got the tulip tuners and everything. Great, fun guitar to play. And I love it. So I don't think I flip-flop all the time whether or not I'm going to thin the herd and which guitars to keep, which guitars to get rid of. Sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should put this one on the chopping block because I have other Les Paul guitars. But then I play it and it's like, but it feels different than the other ones. And it sounds pretty good. So like, why would I want to get rid of it? I don't know. It sounds good. Plays easy. I don't know how much these guitars go for now, if you can still get them. Maybe somebody wants to do a quick Google search for the Bacchus Live Road Universe model. See if they're still around and how much they go for. I'm curious to see if the prices went up with these guitars as well. They probably did. I wouldn't be surprised. Everything's going up. Okay, so sorry, I'm just scrolling back. I just don't want to miss any comments here. Last time I missed a couple of comments that I only saw after when I was watching the rerun. Cool Tunes says he's thinking Taylor 150E around $1,200, but used about $800. So he's searching for an acoustic. Taylors are awesome guitars. I used to have one before I bought my Martin. Great guitars. Both Martin and Taylor, can't go wrong. Casey Lee says, I'm not bragging or anything, but I haven't bought a guitar all year. You're good, Casey. You're good. Probably one of the few here that hasn't bought one yet. What's going to be the first guitar or first item of gear for 2025, guys? What do you have your eyes and wallet locked onto? Anything interesting? I'm always curious to see what people are going to be buying. I'm waiting for NAMM because I know NAMM's just around the corner and they usually announce some pretty interesting things. I got whiff, if you want to call it that. I got whiff of a rumor which might happen that Dave Friedman, we know Dave Friedman is the master guitar builder that I love so much. he might be offering some kind of amplifier with the Jose mod. Now, if you guys, are as old as I am, you probably remember when everybody, especially the big hair bands, were getting their Marshalls modded by a gentleman that they referred to as Jose, and he was basically supercharging their amplifiers, putting in an additional gain stage and master volume and all this kind of stuff to basically hot rod the actual amplifiers. Now Jose passed away, and so it's very difficult to get these mods. There are other people that are offering them, or different versions of these type of mods, but apparently Dave Friedman has hinted that he might be offering an amplifier with the mods already installed, so maybe like a new version of the hot rodded amplifier. He came out with one recently, the Plex, which I was talking about, that I did have a big case of gas for, but I didn't end up buying it because I think my Marshall Studio Vintage gets quite close to the sounds that you can get with that particular amplifier if I want to, just using pedals and whatnot. And honestly, with the aux box, it sounds fantastic. So I didn't really feel like I needed to spend another $3,000 or $3,500 on another amplifier, because that one was close enough for me. But I can always be enticed. Never know. So the Vox Guitars Rock says, I'm going to pull the trigger on that Behringer Fuzz, cause why not? So you and me are the same, Vox. I'm going to be doing the same. I'm eyeing those 3 pedals from Behringer. I mentioned it last week. So I think I'm going to pull the trigger on the Fuzz. I'm going to pull the trigger on the clone that they're going to come out with, and I'm going to probably pull the trigger on the Univibe, because first of all, I wanted to, like you said, why not, just to try them out and see how they go, and possibly do some videos for the show as well, in case you guys are interested in checking it out. Maybe you guys want to wait till I get them and give you some insight, so you don't have to blow your money if they're no good. I really don't know what to expect. I'm hoping they're going to be good, and hopefully I won't be disappointed. So we'll see. Casey says, I have a Godin A6 Ultra on layaway. Going to pick it up next week. Mostly going to use it with a looper for writing, as it has a piezo in the bridge and a humbucker in the neck. Why do you say you're mostly going to use it with a looper for writing? Do you think you can't use it for anything else? I mean, it's I'm sure the guitar will be fine to do anything with. That's very nice. I never owned a Godin, and people are surprised when I tell them this, because Godin is made in my area, in my neck of the woods. The company's actually here. So I've never owned a Godin. I've played plenty of them. I've tried a lot of them, but I haven't ever purchased one. Who knows? Maybe one day. Searching for Tone says, I bought the Klon Klobe. Going to review it and compare it to WA Centavo. Sweetwater says they will be in sooner. Did you mean the Klon Clone or the Klon Klobe? You probably meant the Klon Klobe. Clone. You mistyped there probably. Yeah, that's right. All right, cool. I'm going to be interested in seeing what you have to say about that one as well. DMAC says, I'm still looking at the Ibanez AZ Prestige made in Japan HSS model. It's out of my usual price range, but I may put some gear towards trade for it to ease the price a bit. I really like the look of those guitars, and I've tried one in the store. They've played really nice. I like what they're doing. However, there are a few other guitars that are close in features and close in feel to that particular guitar. That's probably why I haven't been enticed to grab one. But yeah, they are very sweet guitars. So Shane says that the Bacchus guitars range from $400 to a little over 1,000 USD. If you can grab one for 400, Shane, well worth it. That's a good deal. I don't know how easy they are to find these days, but if you can find one for 400, I'd grab it. You wouldn't regret it for that price. Vinny says he's never owned a Godin either. Even though it's Canadian, the smaller dealers, mom and pops, didn't carry them. Only Long and McQuaid had them. And from my experience, even Long and McQuaid didn't have a wide variety of options for those guitars. They would only have one or two. They are very solid guitars. Casey Lee says, every Godin I've played has been great. They do have a good reputation and they are built very well. It's just a question of whether or not you like the feel and the functionality of the guitars. I don't know if they would allow me to tour their shop. That would be something. I don't know if they offer that kind of thing, like PRS does. Gibson does that all the time. Fender does that all the time. But as far as Godin, I don't know if they actually do that. That'd be cool. Maybe I will reach out to them. Who knows? It's a good idea. Why not? Let me just scroll back here. Have you guys noticed that a lot of many times when the rerun of the show appears on YouTube for the first time after the live show, there's no comments? Well, it takes time. Sometimes it could take up to 24 hours to get those comments to pop up. I don't know why that is, but it's really annoying because that's the reason why I like watching the reruns, is to see all the comments that I've missed during the show. So anyway, it is what it is. Guys, before I forget, please, 2025, let's start off on the right foot. Please give me a thumbs up. We have a little under 60 people here watching me, and 24 thumbs up. I would appreciate the support for the show and the channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, you need to subscribe. You can jump right into the chat, but please subscribe to help the channel grow. We're doing really well. By the way, if anybody, I did mention the Bacchus that I'm playing here. I did a review on that guitar. If ever you're interested in watching that, I'll put the link to it in the chat. Most of the time, the stuff that I'm playing, guys, I've already reviewed at one stage or another. There's a lot of content on my channel, and it's all in there. So if ever you want to catch the full review of this guitar, it's in there. So Paul says Bacchus LP new are now made in Indonesia. $850 USD, but must be imported via Japan. Well, this one is not Indonesian. It's Chinese. So I don't know how the Indonesian models will stack up to this one, but I like it. I like this one, so I can't speak to the other ones. I haven't tried those. Hey Zach, what's happening, dude? Good morning. Happy 2025. Let's see here. Great. We got a few more thumbs up. That's great. Thank you, guys. Vox says, thanks for thumbs up reminder, Tony. I thought I had hit it already, but I was wrong. Well, thank you for providing the thumbs up, Vox. Boomerang had a question. He says, what's the best way to set up an audio interface to the PC? PDIF, optic, Firewire, USB. That's a good question. I don't know if, depending on what your setup is computer-wise, SPDIF is usually pretty good. Optic is good too. It's probably a little bit older. A lot of units maybe don't use optic all that much right now. Firewire, I'm running USB. It works fine. But I think the SPDIF is probably the best option most of the time. If you have the connections, you will maybe get a little bit better performance using that. Max says he personally prefers made in Indonesia, much better quality control. Perhaps, I don't know. Hard to say. It's a little bit all over the place, Max. It depends on the guitar, the company, the manufacturing plant. You know, there's so many things that come into play. It's hard to paint everybody with the same brush and just say that Indonesia is better across the board. In my experience, things will vary quite a bit. So it depends. Shane says he tested out the Bacchus Lefty Telecaster, but the fretwork was meh. Yeah, it's always, if the frets are not nicely finished, you know, you can do it yourself, but if you're looking for something right out of the box, you should be happy with the guitar right off the shelf. So Shane also says, I've previously owned a Steenberger Spirit. They are not that good anymore. How come they're not good anymore? I only played one very, very early on. I was probably still only 17 or 18. My friend had one. He came over with it. It was very odd to me. It felt like a stick. It felt like I was playing a broom. And I don't know. At that stage, I don't know if it was good or not, to be honest. I don't even remember how it felt very well. But sad to hear that they're not as good as they used to be. DMAX says, it's strange how some companies will have virtually the same models or slight variations and make one in China and the other in Indonesia. I think it boils down to a price point variation, you know. Different markets trying to make more money on one over the other. You know, that kind of thing. Hey, have you guys seen, there's been a lot of hoopla on the new Led Zeppelin documentary that's supposed to be coming out soon. I have my heart set on catching that somehow. Hope I don't miss it. There's so many different ones, so many different, what's the word? People talking about it and saying different things about it. So I'm wondering whether or not anybody here has already seen it, maybe somewhere in your neck of the woods if it's playing. Anybody catch it already? I don't think it's out yet. I'm gonna be that's definitely on my hit list for 2025. I want to definitely try and catch that. Hey, I read something funny this week. I wanted to bring up to you guys the fact that Samsung wanted to buy a Les Paul from someone. I don't know if you've heard this story already, but Billy Morrison mentioned that Samsung approached him to buy one of his guitars. And for those of you who don't know who Billy Morrison is, Billy Morrison used to play for Billy Idol, amongst a few others. I think he was also playing for the Cult at one stage too. Anyway, apparently there's a story that says that he had a Gibson Les Paul and the company Samsung wanted to buy it. And I don't know why that would be the case. Like, why would Samsung want to buy his guitar? I'm not really sure. I didn't get the whole story about why. But apparently, it was a Gibson LS6, for those of you who know that particular model. But apparently he got, he threw out a number. And they took it. and he sold it. Now he regrets selling it. I don't know how much it actually ended up costing them to buy his guitar, but it's weird that it's the first time I hear of a company like that wanting to buy a guitar. Hey, maybe somebody out there wants to buy one of my guitars. I'll throw out a crazy number. Take advantage. Why not? It would be fun to do. We'll make it an early Christmas gift, or a late Christmas gift. Early for next year, late for this year. Shane said, I want a Led Zeppelin movie told from the viewpoint of GPG, John Paul Jones. A horror movie starring Page would also be cool. Page always had that allure of, you know, the guy who sold his soul to be the guitar whiz, you know. Especially when you watch those old movies of Led Zeppelin, and he breaks out the violin bow, and the smoke is happening, and the lights are on him, and the delay is going on with a theremin and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, this guy, he's possessed for sure. But yeah, John Paul Jones got the, I guess the poop end of the stick, as they say. With the whole Led Zeppelin thing, and it's sad that he was sort of odd man out many times when they were talking about reunions and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why. Maybe they just didn't like the guy. Who knows? Max says, I want a Tony guitar. How much? Are you asking for me to throw out a price? I don't think you want to do that, Max. Shane says David Bowie was scared shitless of Jimmy Page. Why is that, Shane? I never heard that story. I'd be curious to know. What did he do? So Profile Production says to Tony, I played the Woodman Hall in Crouvier last question mark. It was cold, my hands were cramping. Any info on how to keep that from happening? You mean keep your hands from cramping up because of the cold? Is that your question? The only thing I can suggest is maybe just, warming up enough. Keeping your hands as warm as possible. And just warming up. Were you wearing a jacket? Was it that cold? You can always get those Zippo hand warmers. The ones I'm talking about that look like giant Zippo lighters. They have some holes in them, and you can actually light them and put them in your pocket to keep your hands warm. If you're wearing a jacket or something, you can just maybe put your fretting hand in a pocket with one of those inside, and from time to time warm it up. I'm not really sure. I don't usually play outside when it's cold. This is when Jimmy Page gets messy. Anyways. Yeah, there's Alex. You're absolutely right. John Paul Jones reminds me of Michael Anthony Van Halen's "On Man Out." Yeah, it's kind of that scenario. Unfortunately, I guess in a band situation when everybody's friends and close and been stuck to each other for years and years playing together. There's always going to be someone that you gravitate more towards and get along with better. And maybe John Paul Jones was just a little bit more difficult. I don't know. Max wants to know if I ever tried using a violin bow on the Les Paul. I don't have a violin bow, but if I had one, I definitely would. But you can do the same kind of thing without a violin bow. You can kind of do it like this. If you take your pick, you can just kind of go like. It's not the same. You need to have a pick that has kind of an edge to it, but it won't work now. Nah, I can't do it. I don't have the right pick. But if you have a pick that has a little bit of a grip to it, you can kind of emulate that with a pick. I don't have a violin bow. Maybe I should get one. Maybe I should get a cheap one just for fun. Try it out. Jonesy was very talented. He played bass. He was able to play keyboards. He did a lot of producing as well after Led Zeppelin. Yeah, there's a lot of. He did a lot of great things. Did you guys watch the documentary that's out on Woodstock? It's on Netflix. I think it's called Woodstock Uncensored or something like that. I watched it the other day. Pretty cool, I have to say. If you're an old guy like me, and I was not even born when Woodstock happened, but if you have good memories of stuff that you've heard about Woodstock, this documentary will shine a light on the whole thing, the whole production of Woodstock, and make you go, man, those guys. It's amazing that Woodstock even happened, and they go through all of the information about how it was originally conceived, what they had to go through to get it, to find a place, threats they were getting because they were all long-haired hippies and nobody wanted to deal with them back in the day. Then, of course, they're trying to make money selling tickets. Originally, Woodstock wasn't supposed to be a free concert. People were supposed to have tickets, but what ended up happening is that so many people showed up at the event. They were expecting a couple of thousand people, and at the end of the day, there was probably about 500,000. And forget it. Like the whole idea of collecting tickets at the event went out the window. So they're like, well, it is what it is. I guess it's going to be a free concert. And then, of course, there's information on who the bands were that didn't want to go on until they got paid, like The Who, risking riots and all that kind of stuff. And, Hendrix was the highest paid artist at the venue. I think he made like a little over $30,000 back in the day to perform, but he was performing twice. And, he was having trouble even getting to the venue because there was so many people that he had to kind of bribe somebody to fly him in on a small plane or something like that to get him close to the venue to try and actually play. All kinds of interesting stories, behind the scenes gossip and stuff. I love that kind of stuff. Wouldn't the bow work better on something with a 7.25 radius? Possibly. I guess if you're trying to play all of the strings, but I don't think Jimmy Page was really playing the bow on all the strings. I think he was just playing it on the B and the E string, the high B, E string. Maybe the G from time to time. I don't really know. I would have to analyze all of the footage of him doing that. But that would be cool. I would love to try that at some point. I don't know if you need to. I don't know much about guitar violin bows, but I think you have to actually also have some resin on the bow for it to do that squeaky thing. Let's see. Johnny Guitar 57 says, Tony, my new 20 25 amp just arrived yesterday. Marshall Studio GTM guitar, combo amplifier, 20 watts, 1x12. Didn't plug it in. Sweetwater Special, the combo on sale, same price as the head. That's another really cool Marshall that I would have loved to have if I didn't have my Studio Vintage. The GTM was the one I was originally eyeing, which I think is even more vintage sounding, you know, if we could even call them vintage. Really, and it's a very cool looking amplifier. So I'm happy for you, dude. I'd love to know what you feel. Is that your first Marshall? Or are you a Marshall guy at heart? I always ask that question because I want to know, because if you're already a Marshall guy and you just buy another Marshall, I know you're probably going to like them because, you know, you're a Marshall guy. But if you're going from something completely different, maybe a Fender guitar, a Vox, and all of a sudden you're jumping into Marshall territory, I always like to ask the question, like, you know, how did you get there? You know, I got to say, for me, I'm going to, you know, I'm probably a diehard Marshall dude. I love the Marshall sound. I like Fender guitars too. I have a really nice Princeton that I built myself. I have the Studio, the Supersonic 22, which is a great Fender amplifier. I've owned other Fender amps as well, but I always find myself gravitating to that Marshall sound more than anything because it's the sound I grew up with. It's the sound that I know and love. For me, it's a Marshall, you know. And if I buy another amp, you know, sometimes I'll experiment and I'll get a Mesa Boogie or something like that. I'll buy the Mesa Boogie, but it's probably mainly because I'm trying to get that Marshall sound. And that's why I went with Friedman. The Dirty Shirley is kind of a, you know, it's definitely based on a Marshall. Great amplifier, by the way. And I've had other Marshalls back in the day as well, but I'm really happy with the Studio Vintage. So if you haven't already tried it and you're a Marshall guy, go ahead, get one. You won't regret it. I'm telling you, it's a great amplifier. Casey wants to know, has anybody tried an Earl Slick guitar? He also played for Bowie. I've heard they sound very good, but they are very, very heavy. Now, I think the Earl Slick guitars are being sold by Guitar Fetish. I'm not necessarily a fan of the models that they have, and maybe they've introduced a few new models, Casey, that I'm not aware of. Let me take a quick look. The ones that I've seen in the past were kind of like road-worn guitars, and I don't even know if they still sell them. By the way, the SBS guitars look sweet on Guitar Fetish. Okay, so let me see if they still have them here. Maybe they don't. Oh, yeah, they do. Well, they have products. Slick brand products here. And it looks like they still have some guitars. Some mostly... I'm trying to see what the prices are. So the guitars are still there. You can actually save $10 on all the Slick guitars right now, which is not a huge deal or anything like that, but they do have a few. Let's look at the SL54Ts, which are kind of like Super Strats. These look kind of nice. And let's see how much they cost. So they're $239. Not too bad, actually. Yeah, some of them look nice. I haven't tried them, to be honest. I haven't tried this particular one, and I can see there's a few new models that have popped up since I last looked at them. For $230? I mean, they can't be that bad. You say that they're heavy. Do they specify what the body material is on these guitars? It looks to me like it could be ash, but I could be wrong. Trying to see here. I'm trying to read real quick. I know they have Alnico 5s, which I like for pickups. 9.2K on the the bridge pickup, which should be good. A lot of output. What do they say about the wood? They don't talk about the wood. Hey, when they do that. Doesn't look like they mention what it's made out of, but I can see with the grain. It has a very defined grain to it, so I think it might be ash, some kind of ash. It's very similar to Charvel's. I'll take a look at them in more detail later. Yeah, it looks like ash to me. Yeah. That's maybe why they're a little bit more on the heavy side. All right, let's see here. So Vox says he likes the Earl Slick guitars because I can take a Sharpie to the leg of the L and base of the I to make a headstock say suck, which matches my playing. Vox, you kill me, man. You kill me. I would say, look, for $230, you could mod the crap out of these things. Back to the violin bow. Paul says he had a violin bow back in the 70s, but you can only use it practically on a low E. I gave it to my drummer who bowed his gongs for a very dramatic sound. I never heard of that. How do you bow a gong? There's all kinds of ways to get a sound, I guess. So here we have somebody who says he has 2 Slick guitars. I like them, but they are not amongst my favorites, but good for the price. Why? Okay, so they're not your favorites. Why? This is what, I mean, is it because it's just because you don't like the guitar style, or does it not feel right? Is there something specific that you can point out to us why you don't like those guitars? And Wayne says, my slick 60s headstock was ugly, so I rounded it with a belt sander. That's what I would do if I didn't like it. I'd change it. Why not? Hey, Charles, what's happening, dude? Welcome to the show, man. Happy 2025. Shane says, I like the way FM guitars look. Their double necks are wild. I haven't ever built up the courage to own a double neck guitar. I don't know if I ever will, to be honest. They're pretty cool. I'd love to play one. And I think I probably tried one in a store. But to actually go out and buy one, I don't think I'm ready for that. It's kind of hard to show up anywhere with a double neck guitar and not be expected to play, either Led Zeppelin or Rush or something like that. Or maybe Triumph. I think the guitars from Triumph also had a double neck guitar at one stage. You probably have to look long and hard to find a guitar case for it too. I don't think they're going to be that easy to find. Hopefully if you buy one, they come with one, because otherwise you're not going to be able to. You're going to have to carry that thing in a plastic bag or something. MFN says, hi, Tony. I have a Mesa Boogie California Tweed and a Roland JC22. I have room for one more amp, less than 1K. I play in my home office. Vox, Orange, or Supro? Okay, cool. That's a cool question. Let's see. What would I do? If I already had a Mesa Boogie Tweed and a Roland JC22, so I got my clean covered, I got my edge of breakup covered, more classic edge of breakup. Vox, Orange, or Supra. Well, Vox tend to be more, coveted for their clean sounds. Supro is kind of, depending on which Supro model you're looking at maybe the sort of Jimmy Page sound, early Led Zeppelin sound. And Orange to me is like, it's kind of in the middle. Well, not in the middle, because you don't really get tremendous cleans out of Orange amplifiers. They're pretty saturated in terms of, you could pretty much tell when you're playing through an Orange. But again, it also depends on which one, because you're mentioning Orange when you're not specifically mentioning which one. Some of them are quite different, and the same goes for the Supro. But for me, I guess, because I had never actually owned one, I'd probably end up going for the Vox. Supro I've had. They're nice amplifiers. Orange is cool, but I think I would get tired of the Orange sound after a while. For me, probably Vox would be a little bit more versatile for the kind of stuff that I do. But you would probably be, you're going to have two amplifiers that are kind of clean. The JC22, although the JC22 is not is transistor, not tube, I would probably still go with the Vox. Ooh, I'm falling behind here on the questions. Let me scroll down. Shane says the FM double neck doesn't look like a double neck. Check it out. And Johnny Guitar 57 says I would go with the Orange 15. 15 is a good number in terms of wattage. The only thing about Orange amplifiers, in my opinion, that leaves a little bit to be desired is the fact that you can't really get a clean sound. You're kind of getting a sound that's going to be always a little dirty, Alex says he has an Orange, the Micro Terror. I think he says a Micro Tier, but I think it's a Micro Terror plugged into a 412 cabinet. Just fun as hell. Yeah, because you get a lot of saturation out of those amplifiers, for sure. Max says for 550 euros, you can buy a cool double neck Jimmy Page with a case at Thomann. Some say it's great. I saw those Thomann double neck guitars. Yeah, pretty interesting. That's an option. They're not that expensive. You can scratch that itch without necessarily breaking the bank. The only thing is, once you buy one of those, get ready to hang on to it for a while, because I don't know if you're going to be able to sell them. I don't think there's that much demand for those double neck guitars. If they're not, if it's not a Gibson, good luck trying to sell it. Paul says, Tony, the biggest selling tube amp on the planet is a Vox 15 watt. I know. If I'm not mistaken, isn't it those little, what do they call them? The train, what do they call them? Night trains, something like that. Because they're inexpensive, right? And Vox is great with pedals. Yeah, it is. You can still get it to crank. You can still get a Vox to crank for sure. But you would definitely need pedals. I came really close at one point to picking up a Vox, but then it didn't happen. And ever since then, I missed the train and I didn't go back. But never say never. Maybe 2025 will be the year I actually buy my first Vox guitar. I don't know. Wayne says, I run my Vox Tone Lab SE into a Vox amp. I remember those Tone Labs, those multi-effects units with the little tube, which I don't know if they were actually even plugged in or if it was just a little light that made it look like the tube was on. I remember those. They're still floating around out there. Very cool, man. Let me see here. What else did I have on the agenda that I wanted to talk about today? There was a couple of things. Apparently, a few well-known, or at least one pretty well-known YouTuber says that he's absolutely sure that this whole fad of multi-effects units is going to swing the other way and people are going to be going back into tube amplifiers. I don't know if it's a fad or anything like that. I mean, multi-effects units have been popular for a long time. It's not new. So I think it's just a question of, what people prefer. What the style of music and stuff that's happening today, a lot of people are not even playing music outside of the house anymore. And, the people that are just find it more convenient sometimes to go into the front of house with a multi-effects unit. Guthrie Govan, who's, we all know is a wizard on guitar, also recently switched over to a Fractal. He used to be playing, I think he was playing the Sheriff amps that, are made over in the UK and, with his Charvel and everything. But recently he decided he would join the dark side and he's playing through a Fractal now. I know a lot of other people are playing through these things that you might not even realize that they're playing through them, but they are. So, it's a question of what works for you. If you can get a good sound out of a Fractal, just like you can get a good sound out of an amplifier, doesn't mean you have to necessarily go tube. I do both. I like both. Paul says, Tony, I had a Vox 15. It was total crap. The cleans were underpowered and the dirt was total mud with 0 highs. If you're going to go with a Vox, you have to go AC 30, in my opinion. And you probably have to crank it quite a bit to get that sound that you like. Boomerang says heaps of artists use a Fractal mainly to consistency going live. Not only consistency, but also redundancy. It's a lot easier having a couple of Fractal units in case one fails. You go to the other one when you're touring or gigging with vintage gear, vintage amplifiers, tubes that can fail at any time. You're kind of walking the razor's edge, hoping that they're going to get you through. And if something should fail, hopefully you have a backup. With these type of things, they rarely do fail, and it's a lot less expensive to have 2 Fractal units or whatever you're playing through than a whole bunch of vintage gear that's hard to find. And Rich is absolutely right. Old guys don't like hauling heavy amps around. I know I don't. If I can just grab a multi-effects unit and have everything in there and play through the front of the house, I'm a happy camper. Although I haven't actually tried playing through the front of the house. Whenever I do bring my Fractal or other multi-effects unit, I usually bring a little flat response full range speaker that's powered. Go through that. Paul says, Tony, after buying the Friedman IRX, I can see all tube amp companies making them and surviving on them. It's good to have an alternate source of income. A lot of people do like the ability of being able to, store and load your own IRs and the convenience of having something portable. I get all of that, man. I'm all for it. I'm not necessarily an amp snob in the sense that it has to be tube. I do agree that tubes and real amps, when they're cooking, and you're in the zone and you have the sound, are great. There's nothing better, but a lot of things have to align to get there. Alex says Vox is for people that don't like Fenders or Marshall. It's in between. Kind of is. Yeah, kind of is. That's a good observation. Let's see here. Oh, just a little trivia here. Does anybody out there know how AC/DC actually got their name? I came across something. I already knew the story, but I didn't know all of it. Probably most of you already know that AC/DC stands for alternating current and direct current. And they got the idea of the name because of that, right? That they saw it on, I think, the side of a sewing machine or something like that. And it was written AC/DC on it. But I didn't know it wasn't any of the members of the band that came up with it. Apparently, I think it was the sister of, who was it? The sister of one of the members, I think. Sister-in-law. It's Malcolm Young's sister-in-law came out with the name, where she said that she saw the AC/DC, and she brought it up to them, and alternating current, direct current, power, electricity, all that good stuff. And they loved it and they stuck with it. I wonder if she gets royalties because she came up with the name. And I gotta say, it's a good name. AC/DC is a great name for a band, man. And I gotta tell you, it's not easy coming up with a good name for a band these days. Everything's taken, right? You gotta come up with something quirky. So I remember when people used to mention that back in my high school days, Shane, Antichrist, Devil's Child, or Antichrist, Devil Comes, or whatever it is. I remember that. The whole, I think it's probably where all the horn stuff came about when Angus was like, had the little horns and all that kind of stuff. I think they just took that and ran with it. Did a little tongue-in-cheek parody and sold some merchandise with horns. Vox says they asked Bon Scott if he was the AC or the DC, and he said, "Nah, I'm the lightning bolt in the middle." That's a great rock and roll answer. I like that. I still think that Bon Scott is the better, the original, and he's the one that started the whole thing. So to me, Bon Scott is the man for AC/DC. Yeah, you gotta love him. I love him. It took me a long time to appreciate AC/DC. I was pretty, I would say, against AC/DC back in the early days when I was younger. I didn't get it, and a friend of mine was heavy into AC/DC, and at the time, when you're young, you always have those conversations with your friends, like, my band's better than your band, and this is why. I was into Led Zeppelin, I was into Van Halen, other bands as well. But, my friend was hardcore AC/DC, and I'm like, I would make fun of them back in the day. And little did I know they would outlive them all. AC/DC would outlive them all, and they're still doing it. And whether you like him or not, when when the drum starts on those AC/DC songs and you're driving your car, the gas pedal goes down a little further, I think. It's just great, it's great driving music, you know what I mean? When you're in the car and AC/DC's pumping through your radio, you're going to go a little quicker, a little faster. Just make sure you're not being followed by the cops when that happens. Yeah. Shane says, "Okay, who just played the Back in Black riff on the guitar just now? Fess up." Yeah, man. It's funny. You know what? I had over the holidays, guys, I had a few get-togethers with family and friends, and we had dinner and all that kind of stuff. And I was listening to, I was playing some music just to be able to have some background music, during dinner. So I usually go in and try and find something, iTunes, and I came across some dinner music that is basically a whole bunch of well-known rock songs, but they're done in a kind of a casual jazz kind of flavor. They're all kind of redone, girl singer, sort of jazz, easy listening kind of dinner music. Weird, because it's like I'm listening to these songs and they're being played so differently, with different chords and like a jazz flavor, and I couldn't recognize the song. I'm like, I know this song, but until the chorus comes in, I'm like, I don't know. They wouldn't come to me. And I was listening to it, and I thought it was pretty cool because I then started listening to it while I was driving, just so I can see whether or not I could like pick out the song before it got to the chorus. Well done. I mean, the music is great. There's good musicians playing these songs, but it's weird hearing the songs being reinterpreted that way and changed that drastically, where you have a rock song being played in a jazz flavor. It threw me off guard. Vox says he was lucky enough to see AC/DC with the original lineup in Toronto in '79. There's crappy video of it on YouTube. Really? Oh, cool, man. Toronto, huh? Very cool. Max says, oh yeah, there's a YouTube channel about those jazz bands playing rock songs. So cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was actually a YouTube channel on that. That's pretty cool. I'd like to check that out. Ian Guitar Shack says, I didn't like VH at first. So when did you switch over, Ian? How long did it take you? How many albums? To me, Van Halen 1 blew my socks off. When I heard that album for the first time, I'm like, whoa, this is different. But I get it. Not all the Van Halen albums were great. So Vinny's World says, check out Robin Adele Anderson. She does a lot of that. I will. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, man. Jazz Sabbath. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I like listening to, music that I already know and it's been reinterpreted. It keeps it fresh because after a while, there's only so many times you can listen to, the Van Halen and the Led Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff that you've heard thousands of times already. This is why I like watching other people perform the songs sometimes, because it breaks it down and gives you like a new interpretation of the song that you've heard so many times. Jack says, Tony, I finally put new pickups in a Leo James American flag guitar. And? Don't keep us in suspense, Jack. Tell us. I love when somebody says, I put them in. ... Yeah. And? What's the conclusion, Jack? Are they keepers? Jack likes to keep us in suspense. Mark says, have you heard of Attila? Billy Joel's prog metal band? Sounds like ELP meets King Crimson. No, I didn't. I haven't heard of that. I didn't know Billy Joel had a prog metal band. Interesting. See, this is why I love the Sunday shows. I share some stuff. You share some stuff. We all come away winners. There's a lot of interesting things that we can check out. So I read an article this week. They were talking about iconic rock riffs. The best guitar riff of all time for the 90s. And that caught my attention because oftentimes I don't agree with what they come up with in terms of this is the best one, or, So I had to read the article, and I kind of guessed it even before I actually read the whole thing. They mentioned that Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit" took the top spot for top riff. I mean, it's a well-known riff. I mean, you hear it, you know what it is. Is it the best or the most well-known? I don't know. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of great riffs out there. It's hard to pick a winner. To me, a great riff is a riff that, gets you doing this within the first 10 seconds. So they mentioned that one, but look, there's, riffs like Crazy Train, Back in Black, Barracuda from Heart, for example. Enter Sandman, well-known riff, of course. Whole Lot of Love, of course, super well-known riff. You Really Got Me from the Kinks, Smoke on the Water, Satisfaction, of course. There's so many riffs. You know, how do you pick just one? I love the riff of the beginning riff of Can't You Hear Me Knocking from the Rolling Stones. To me, that's a fantastic riff. And just the feel on that one with the drums. Like as soon as you hear it, you know, it opens up with that riff. And the space between the riff and the drums just has that wonderful groove. To me, that one is like it's one of the top ones. I love that one. When you hear that in you know, often they'll use that in a soundtrack to a movie somewhere. When you hear that, automatically you're like, yeah, you know, you know what it is, and you start to groove right off the bat. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, Alex, 2112. Love it, man. That's the one for me. Such a cool riff. Anyways, if you have one that you feel is even better than that, that's your favorite, let me know. I'm curious. That's mine, I gotta say. There's been a lot of talking with, you know, Randall Smith lately. I saw him being interviewed on a couple of YouTube channels, and you know, Randall's the man behind Boogie, Mesa Boogie, and for those of you that don't know, I mean, Mesa Boogie got its start when Randall Smith started modding Fender amplifiers. Primarily, he took the Princeton and just supercharged it, and came out with the Mesa Boogie. So Mesa Boogie is kind of based on the Fender platform. For those of you who don't know the history behind it. But I always like listening to them talking about how they got started and what made it different, you know, what got them over the top. And for them, I'm pretty sure it was the fact that Carlos Santana ended up playing and trying it and liking it, and he basically became the indoor C for those early Mesa Boogie amps, you know. I don't think, if it wasn't for him, I don't think they would have managed to get started. You know, it always takes that push from an artist. And I think that's, PRS also had a big push from Carlos Santana. If Carlos Santana hadn't started playing PRS guitars back in the day, I don't know if PRS would have been around today. Should we, guys, should we take a look at the poll question before I forget? I didn't even think about that. Yeah, let's look at the poll question, shall we? And don't be shy to ask questions, guys. The show's not over yet. If you have any questions that are guitar, gear related, that kind of stuff, jump in, man. Show's not over. Casey says, Joan Jett's opening for I Love Rock and Roll for its simplicity, but everyone knows what it is immediately. Yeah, how does that one go? I don't even remember. Oh, yeah. How's that go again? Yeah. Some kind of riff like that, I think. Yeah, it's easy to remember. Shane says, friends, Take Me Out riff might be the best riff of the 2000s. Sabbath's got some awesome riffs. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. What would you choose to do? Buy a vintage amp or buy a handmade reissue? Interesting question. Handmade reissue. Do you mean like custom shop? Is that that's what you're saying? I mean, you can't go wrong with a vintage amp because it's always going to be more valuable in the long run than a reissue. Because a reissue is still a reissue. It's not a real vintage instrument, even though people kind of tend to class them in the same category. I don't fall for it. To me, a reissue custom shop is still a mass-produced guitar, a modern mass-produced guitar. I think I'd go with the vintage amp. Ian's Guitar Shack says Paul Reed Smith had trouble with Carlos Santana. He didn't want to give him his guitar back after loaning it to him to try out. Yeah, I heard the story. I heard the story that Paul Reed Smith used to hang out at the concerts backstage by the door trying to get past the bouncer. And he would bring his guitars so that artists could try his guitars. And he would say, here, I want Carlos to try this. And then the bouncer's like, who the hell are you? Get lost, punk. And he ended up taking the guitar and bringing it to Carlos Santana. And then Paul Reed Smith had a hard time getting it back after the fact because he liked it so much. And then then at that point, I think he said, I want you to make me another one. And then how do you make two really good guitars, It's all these are such great stories, Take it easy, Shane. Sweet dreams, my friend. All right, we're going to go to the poll question, guys. Let me jump to the poll question here real quick. And I appreciate you guys answering those questions, by the way. I usually post a poll question for those of you that are not new to the show. And if you don't know where it is, it's in the community section of the Addicted to Gear page. So the poll question this week was, what is your favorite guitar fretboard material? And of course, there's more than just these, but the main ones that I listed were maple, rosewood, ebony, or other. And there was 549 votes, quite a substantial amount of voters on this one. And 44% of you chose rosewood. I'm partial to rosewood too. It's funny that maple and ebony were tied neck and neck at 27%. So either you like maple or you like ebony. You know what? If you're going to go with a Les Paul style guitar, it's cool if you can get one with ebony, with an ebony fretboard. They're not easy to find anymore. Rosewood is more common. On my Strats, I like rosewood. I am getting... I think for my Telecasters, I prefer maple, but for my Stratocasters, I prefer rosewood for whatever reason. And of course, on my Les Pauls, it's always going to be rosewood for me, unless I can get ebony, but not as easy. So interesting. What do you guys feel? William says ebony. Vox says Richelite. I don't know. I don't know too many people that would prefer that, Vox. I know you're just saying that tongue in cheek. Somebody says Pau Ferro. I think Richelite and Paraferro are not necessarily, the ones that everybody would like to have. They're kind of a substitute. Some of the comments on the poll questions say, I think ebony just looks the most classy. I'm not really making a tone vote. I agree. I think ebony does look the most classy. There's just something really nice about ebony, in my opinion. But in terms of tone, I don't really know if you can tell if it will make that much of a difference. I think overall, on a fretboard, Rosewood tends to feel a little bit more mellow than maple does. But I don't know if it makes a huge impact. Somebody else says Brazilian rosewood is another level. Obviously, not really an option now, but if you find an old guitar with it, you'd wish all your guitars had it. I could agree. I'm old enough to have guitars that have Brazilian rosewood on it when it was still okay. And yeah, there's nothing like it, in my opinion, but you can't really get those anymore. Vinny here says, I almost only buy maple fretboards for Fender style guitars. For other shapes, Les Paul, PRS, pointy things, usually rosewood or ebony. No particular reason other than those being the aesthetics that he likes. Yeah, and a lot of times it's just basic aesthetics. It's absolutely right. It's not necessarily a sound decision, a tone decision. Even though people do claim that there is a difference. I haven't tried any of the epoxy fretboards, but I know that today you can pretty much make fretboards out of anything. You can make fretboards out of paper, and you can get them to look like ebony, because what they do is they compress paper with machines that will put tons and tons of weight. So it basically, with glue and everything, it basically compresses it into a solid piece of wood again. And then you can cut it, you can dye it, you can do whatever you want with it. So sometimes you can have something that looks almost identical to ebony and is not ebony at all. So Motor Rose Music says 1, ebony for looks and smoothness. 2, maple for smoothness. 3, rosewood is a bit porous for me. It fights me too much. So I don't know, does it really? I mean, in a fretboard, your fingers are not really touching the fretboard all that much unless you're really pressing hard. You're really just on the string, really. I guess some people might feel a difference. Nam had some guitars with epoxy fretboards. We'll probably be seeing more and more of those, Boomerang. I think they'll end up, finding alternate materials. And I'm okay with alternate materials like that. But for some reason on my Telecasters, I like maple. It's just what I like. Again, it's a visual thing. And someone else says definitely blackout ebony, but it's so expensive on nice guitars. I have a Charvel with one. The maple is cheaper and slick too. Certain rosewood is fine, but it gets dry and there's more maintenance. Oh, and I don't like laurel. Yeah, a lot of people don't like laurel. That's one thing I have to agree here. We have somebody that mentioned personally either ebony or rosewood is his favorite, and he really doesn't like maple, especially if it's lacquered. Now that's one thing I have to agree. I'm not a big fan of lacquered maple. I prefer maple if it's not lacquered. It feels sticky. So for me, if it's not lacquered, it's definitely something I would prefer. And I like the look of maple fretboards when they start getting used up. They start looking a little grimy. I don't like them when they're like brand new and fresh. So it's nice to have an older guitar where you see that the guitar has been played, and you can see that on these maple fretboards like that. Yeah, some companies do that. You're absolutely right, Vinny. Where they make their boards black and shiny. They claim it's ebony on the spec sheet, but it feels like it's dyed. A lot of times it is dyed. A lot of these Chinese brand guitars, when you play the fretboards, whether it's ebony or supposedly ebony or rosewood, and you play it and you look at your fingers and they're all like dyed, it's like color. You know those are not real ebony or maple fretboards. They're using something else. They just dye them whatever color they want to make them, or they use dye to make them darker or whatever. It's just one of the little tricks that they have there to make their stuff look more expensive or make it look more natural. I'm not a big fan of that because I don't know what they're using in there. Pretty sure it's toxic, whatever it is. So don't go and eat a sandwich after you finish playing guitar. At least wash your hands. Paul says Fender has a new Strat with maple fretboard and a Floyd that he covets, but over $4,000 in Canada. Can you say ouch? What's it made out of? Gold? What the hell, man? Just a nightmare removing the frets, says Boomerang. I was sold on maple during a Robin Trower concert. Yeah, maple's nice. I mean, the cool thing about maple, if it's not treated and doesn't have poly over it, is that it can be cleaned relatively easily. You don't necessarily have to hydrate it like you would have to hydrate a rosewood neck. Rosewood needs a little bit of love. I always, whenever I change strings on my guitars that have rosewood necks, I always put a little bit of mineral oil on there just to hydrate them. You don't want to overdo it either, because you don't want your frets to pop out. Too much is no good, too little is no good. Once in a while, if it needs it, it's just regular maintenance that I like to do. Eddie says, I have an unfinished maple fretboard that's starting to get dirty and worn. I like it. Yeah, me too. I like that. I like that look. You know, it's kind of like my Franken Strat. It's not there yet. And that's one of the disadvantages of having a lot of guitars, guys, is that you can't necessarily play all of these guitars to wear them in. You got to put a lot of hours. But, you know, it's starting to get a little grimy, but not that much. You know, if you want it to get even more grimy quicker, just, you know, eat a pastrami sandwich or something like that and then play guitar. You know, then you don't even have to oil your neck. It's going to be hydrated naturally with olive oil or whatever, you know, whatever juice is on your sandwich. It's the down and dirty way of doing it. All right, guys. I don't know if we have anything else that we'd want to cover before we say bye for today. I've been talking for an hour and a half. I think it's enough for one day. What do you guys say? Is there any last minute questions that you want me to perhaps talk about, or any questions? We still got a bit of time. I'm not kicking anyone off. Doesn't sound too hygienic. Yeah, probably end up getting salmonella poisoning from your guitar. Yeah, you got to be careful, man. Keep those fingers clean. We don't know where they've been. Ooh. Audio interface recommendations. I'm not necessarily the best guy to ask for that. I have a Focusrite Scarlett. It's a relatively old one, and it does the job for me because I'm not doing multi-track recordings. It just has two inputs, so you can do voice and something else. If you're only doing one instrument at a time, you don't have to go crazy. Universal Audio has some great stuff. If you can afford it, I would go with that. They usually have really, really top-notch stuff, but it's expensive. So again, it all depends on whether or not you're doing, you know, what you're doing with your audio interface. But if you're doing any kind of serious recording, I would probably go to Universal Audio. They have the Apollo and a few other ones that are very, very good. Alex2112 says, Tony, where can I get that lightning bolt sitting on your amp? Oh, that guy? This guy? I think I got him at Walmart. You can probably get them on Amazon, but I think I got it at Walmart. It probably was at on sale or something like that. Paul says, I have half my guitars with maple fretboards and half with rosewood, and I find zero difference in feel. You know what? If I just look at some of the guitars here, let me just take a tally. What do I got here? Okay, I got maple. There's two guitars you can't see here. I got maple, maple, maple. Then I got rosewood. Somebody keep track, all right? Rosewood, 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 rosewood. Then I have baked maple, rosewood, rosewood, maple, maple, maple. Sorry, rosewood, rosewood, maple. I'm losing track now. Are you losing track? Somebody keeping track out there? On this side, I have maple, rosewood, 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 rosewood. What's that? I think is that rosewood or maple? Maple and rosewood. All right. What's the tally, guys? And that's just the ones I have in the racks. There's some in the cases here, but I'm not going to bother going through those. So what's the tally? Anybody keeping track? No. This is not a Gibson reissue. No. This is a cheap Bacchus Live Road Universe. So did anybody tally that up? Nobody was paying attention, huh? I was talking to myself, wasn't I? Boomerang says, I heard Rosewood mentioned more. I gotta know. Hold on a second. Let's do this. I'm gonna keep track on my hands here. I'm gonna do maple first. So maple, 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 maple. So far 5 guitars are maple. Maple, maple, 7. It looks like 7 guitars are maple. Now let's do the same with the rosewood. Rosewood, 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 rosewood. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 11 that are rosewood, and I actually forgot there's one over there that's roasted maple. So there's 6 maple, 11 rosewood. And did I count this one? I think I counted that one. Max says, Tony, dude, you need to sell us a guitar. You have too many. Dude, you want one? I'll sell it to you, man. I gotta clean out some stuff. I actually sold one yesterday, but it wasn't a guitar that I was playing. And it was one of those travel guitars, and I didn't end up using it, so I ended up selling it. But yeah, everything must go. There's gonna be a fire sale soon, guys. I gotta get rid of stuff. I gotta get down to like 2 or 3 guitars. That's my New Year's resolution, said no one ever that was addicted to gear. But I probably will sell a couple. Oh man, that was so good. What are we gonna do now, guys? How will I decide what goes? That's the hard part. It's going to have to be one at a time. I guess we'll have to start at the bottom of the totem pole and work our way up. That's what's going to have to happen. But honestly, my goal this year is to get rid of quite a few, actually. Just keep the ones that are essential. That's the plan. I'll let you know how it turns out. I might have to do a video on, a video just on how I decide which to keep and which to get rid of. It's not going to be easy, man. I take the guitars out of the case. I'm like, okay, this guitar's got to go. And then I start playing it. And I'm like, but why does this guitar have to go? It's a nice guitar. Vox says, fire sale. In my neighbor had his wood stove get out of control in his garage last week, and it blew up the propane tanks, landed shingles all over the road out in front of my house. That's crazy, man. Ooh. That's crazy. I'm glad nobody got hurt in that. Oh, yikes. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with our conversation as is for now and leave some for next week. Of course, we'll be back with more next Sunday. If you guys like this kind of jibber jabber, tune in again. And we'll have more to talk about, guaranteed. And maybe less guitars. I'll let you know. All right, guys. Rock your little hearts out. Be good. Make me proud. Have a good week. And tune in next Sunday, same time, same place, for another episode of Addicted to Gear. Of course, watch the videos on the channel and give me a thumbs up if you like them. All right? Talk to you soon. Have a great week, guys. Rock and roll.